Welcome to the Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore. It is Friday, July the 10th, 2020. On this episode of the Politicrat, a potpourri, if you will, of events and a main question. How are you doing in this coronavirus pandemic? That question and a few other things to bring to your attention. Next. Welcome back. I hope you're well. It is something that I've not even asked you about for quite a few weeks now. How are you doing? I mean, that's something to ask you. I think under the circumstances, it's been a difficult time. It's been a very difficult time for all of us in different ways, and for some of us in really difficult and different and profoundly devastating ways. So this episode begins with a few things in terms of news that you may have missed. And then what I really want to talk more about is you and us and where we are and where you are, where we all are in this coronavirus pandemic. Yesterday, Joe Biden unveiled a manufacturing plan that would be all about making things in America. And I find it quite revealing, though not surprising, that the corporate news media in the United States chose not to put that news story a little higher up in its broadcasts. Granted, of course, the focus is always going to be Donald Trump, and that's really one of the biggest problems. Yes, he is in the White House, so that to a degree is understandable. The problem with that is that the coverage is tabloid coverage. So the tabloidization that Walter Cronkite spoke about years and years before he would sadly pass away is the thing that becomes promotion. Tabloidization becomes promotion. And it has become promotion for Donald Trump. And he's got the most powerful news organizations promoting for him. That's the reality. And it's a reality that is very stark and clear. But Joe Biden, by the way, actually put out a plan for manufacturing, making things in the United States again, because we don't. And we haven't. I mean, well, we've assembled parts and we've done things like that. So if you want to call that making something, in auto plants, there are still a few of those around in the Midwest and Michigan. Aside from that, though, what do we make here in this country? Joe Biden put this plan out. It was a plan, I forget the amount of money, it's $700 billion, $400 billion plan. And you would have thought that would make the news. And it made the news, but it didn't go near the first 5 or 10 minutes or so, to the best of my memory, unless maybe you saw in the first 5-10 minutes of the newscast something about Joe Biden releasing this plan. $700 billion plan it was. Made in America, economic recovery. Now, if that's the most important thing, if we are told that the economic recovery and the economy is the most important plan, first of all, can I ask you, is it? Is the economy the most important thing to you, or is it something else? Is it healthcare? Is it education for your children? Is it getting a loan and the kind of situations that you have with that? Is it getting a home, getting a house, owning a home? For people, it's different things, of course. For different people, it's different things. But I guess when I look at it all, I'm not surprised why Joe Biden's manufacturing plan wasn't covered near the top of the headlines and certainly was not covered in any detail. I mean, you can't say that Joe Biden's hiding, and then when he comes out and gives these speeches, you barely cover them. You barely report on them. Now, you cover them. You're there for the whole speech. But when it comes to your news broadcast in the evening or in the afternoon or whenever you do it, you only spend 30 seconds talking about it. You play a 30-second or 10-second soundbite. And there's no discussion on it. There's no conversation around it. There's no 3 or 4 minute segment, and even that's too short. I mean, news has become a commodity. I guess that's where I'm really going with all of this. But I just think that if we are told over and over that the economy, instead of constantly propping up Trump, and look, heck, I watched it, and I do like Rachel Maddow. Here I am, the person who said really stay away from these corporate news media networks, and now I'm spending time watching CNN and Rachel. I guess, I don't know, it's because of the election coming, I don't know. That's my lousy excuse. But Rachel Maddow spent the first, and it was good, granted, I mean, I tweeted out a lot of the video from the segment yesterday, Thursday's broadcast that she did. The first half hour, commercial free, talking about all of the things that Donald Trump has done to make this country far worse. And it was instructive, and it was good to go down this awful memory lane, I guess. But I do wonder about this. Because I think maybe 15 minutes of that half hour could have been spent talking about Joe Biden's manufacturing plan. Maybe. You think so? I think that's more important, isn't it? Or do you think otherwise? Here's why I think the media in part did not cover this important information. Quote, in Dunmore, Pennsylvania, quote, Joe Biden said, quote, nearly $2 trillion in tax breaks, predominantly handed out to the super wealthy, end quote. And therein lies the rub. Now, the Los Angeles Times, with their headline today, Biden pitches manufacturing plan. It's a good, lengthy article in accounting. That's what's going on with that. But print media will cover it. But the cable news media, which is really what I'm talking about when I specifically mention corporate news media, obviously it goes into print, but I'm specifically talking about cable news, these 24-hour networks. How can you do 24-hour network news and not talk about manufacturing? It's a critical function. It's about creating jobs in the country. And maybe if No, I don't want to pick on Rachel Maddow, but maybe if that segment that she did, or any others, not just her, could have been out of the 30 minutes you spent talking about Trump, maybe you could have spent 10 minutes, 15 even, if we're pushing it, on this manufacturing plan that Joe Biden spoke about in his speech. I think that that would have been a really good use of time. I think it could have educated people. I think it could have given people an opportunity to ask questions, to understand, to research, to see if there are any holes in what Joe Biden is saying and articulating. What people are not talking about is Joe Biden, by the way, does lean a bit more past the center than some of us would like as progressives. I'm a progressive. You may be a progressive. You may not be a progressive. You may be a traditional Democrat. I don't know what even traditional means now. But you could be a Republican. You could be an independent. Whatever you call yourself, if you call yourself anything at all. This is important. I think manufacturing is an important thing because we have all this automation in this country. And these are issues. And of course, the news media is never interested in those. So I just want to get that off my chest, I think, first. Second of all, I want to, and I should have said this at the beginning, I really wanted to say to the family of, and this is really sad, because it's just very sad, this news that we've been hearing here, and I am really sorry to hear it. It looks very much as if it's very sad that that Naya Rivera being the actor who was, among other things, in the series Glee. I never saw that. I never watched Glee. I know that people have. Some people liked it. Some people didn't. But I just want to really at this point offer some real prayers to the family of Naya Rivera and pray for her rescue or recovery at this point. I mean, it's been 3 days, I think now, 2 or 3 days since she has been reported missing. She was in a boat with her 4-year-old son, and apparently there were calls by the authorities. They only saw or found a boy, whomever it was, who made the calls, and I don't know all the details, found or just saw there was just a boy in a boat, and obviously contacted authorities, and then there was a search. The 4-year-old being a 4-year-old, who knows what her 4-year-old son saw, and how is that articulated in a 4-year-old in a way that can be, oh look, 4-year-olds can speak. I mean, that's a silly question that I ask. But the point of the matter is that the most important thing is that she's missing, and she's been missing now for 2 or 3 days. It is feared that she is no longer with us, that she's dead, that she may have drowned. It's sad. It's sad stuff. It's very sad. And there's so many people in this world going through some very difficult times, as I alluded to at the beginning here. So I do pray for her to be found, and hopefully found alive. It's just sad stuff. It really is. At this point now, 3 days, and the sheriff's department down in, I think in Los Angeles, had talked about this being a recovery mission. And when you hear a sheriff or any kind of person say recovery, then that tells you, I think, everything you need to know or understand. The other thing I wanted to talk about, two other things, and I'm going to talk about one of these two things in more detail in the very near future. The death of Robert Fuller down in Palmdale in Southern California has been ruled by the sheriff's office, the LA sheriff's office, or the sheriff's office down there in Palmdale, has been ruled as a suicide, a taking of one's life, an ending of one's life. And I, as I did on social media last night on Twitter, handle is the Popcorn REEL. And I had asked if you thought, or if you believed the accounts of the law enforcement folks down there in Palmdale, or do you believe otherwise? Do you believe that Robert Fuller was someone who took his own life? Do you believe that reporting? Or do you think that something more sinister, aka a hanging, a lynching, happened to him? Well, he was hung somehow by his own hands, according to the sheriff's office down there, or by the hands of others. And it's all around horrific and tragic and terrifying, no matter what happened in terms of how it happened. But my whole point was to raise this question about what the quote-unquote official story is. Because when it comes to black people especially, we are given this official story from law enforcement. And we know something different. It's always explained away that way. And then, there are other things about this Fuller case that really raised my eyebrow. There was another suicide that was deemed one that a few weeks before. Malcolm Harsh. Just recently, I believe it was Victorville, just 45 minutes away from Palmdale. Palmdale has had a long history of Klan activity. Klan haven, a long history, like everywhere else in the United States, a long history of Klan activity and of people being lynched, black people being lynched. And there's still active Klan activity in Southern California and all over California and all over the country. Still active. Still very in Palmdale, in that area down there where they were found hanging. And I just find it hard to believe that this is what happened. Look, it may well have been that he may have taken his own life. But what I am asking this question, and I know there's some people who say, well, for his family, we want to get to the bottom of what happened. I want to get to the bottom of that too. And what I am asking is from the framework of, do you believe the quote unquote official story? Particularly when it comes to black men and women. We were told this about Sandra Bland, that Sandra Bland had ended her own life in prison, and that's the framework from which I was launching the inquiry. Now, I didn't specify all of that in my tweet, but that's the thing that the contextual aspect of this. We've been told this many times about black people in particular. Yeah, Sandra Bland, she took her own life when she was behind bars, and Robert Fuller, he took his own life and he'd been talking about ending his life. Malcolm Harsh, yes, he ended his own life. That's what the official story is in all those cases. Those three that I've mentioned. I mean, that's the point here, is when you have situations like this, when you have a factor of whiteness, the systemic whiteness and oppression that black people experience daily, and whether it is in an environment where Klan run amok, whether it is in an environment where you have this blatant racism, or even the most pernicious and subtle racism. And this has no political party affiliation. This is across the board. I don't care if you're a progressive or a Democrat or a Republican, a conservative, an independent. This nonsense about racism and racists being only in one political party, it's just ridiculous. You've got racists in all of these parties. Some of them are blatant, some of them are more subtle. And the subtle stuff is the worst, because as bad as the explicit stuff is, you can see it in front of you. Not that I'm giving any people a merit badge for their blatant racism. But it's that subtle stuff that is horrible. And it manifests itself in all of these insidious ways. So that's my thing. Here's the framework with some more context to it about my question. It is the same as if when a black person is admitted to a hospital, and that black person, and let's say in this case a black woman, complains of chest pains or complains of something very serious happening to her. And literally a doctor says, oh, it's fine, it's a flesh wound. Oh, it's fine, take 2 aspirin and call me in the morning. Oh, it's fine, don't worry, no, you're not having that. Actually, this is the diagnosis here. It's that trivialization of concerns, that trivialization of black life, that trivialization of what that black woman is saying. That brushing off. Oh, it was just he took his own life. Oh, Sandra Bland ended her life in a police precinct. Now, why would she? Why would she end her life in a police precinct? Why wouldn't it be more likely that the police killed her, murdered her? Then there was this whole thing about a photograph, and a photograph of her, and it looked as if she was already dead in the photo. That was being promoted on Twitter and other places as some kind of conspiracy theory. But maybe she was dead already. I don't know. I wasn't there. I can't say. But my whole point is this, what I look at here as a trivialization of our pain or our concerns or our health issues, with coronavirus running rampant, with black people being hospitalized at just record rates, with these numbers skyrocketing. And you've got people coming in saying they've got these issues, and you have doctors, the racism in the healthcare industry, the racism in doctoring, in medicine, in hospitals, and your concern is dismissed. If you're black, if you're a black woman in particular, your concern is dismissed. I am going to talk more about Robert Fuller in coming episodes, because his family have, by the way, commissioned an independent coroner or an independent autopsy person So we will find out some things. In fact, there's supposed to be some kind of, I guess, either a press conference or something of that nature today. If not today, I can tell you that it will be coming, and I will be talking about it. Because quite frankly, I think there is something more at play going on here with Robert Fuller, beyond this official story. It's these trivializations. That's what I'm saying. I think that we see this dismissal. And if it's not a trivialization, is it the case of someone not wanting to do the proper investigation? I mean, look, again, here is the context for what I say in the question that I launched. It takes so freaking long for an arrest to be made when it comes to the taking of a black life. Breonna Taylor was shot to death, shot 8 times in her bed. Now I'm hearing, oh, well, the mayor of Louisville, oh, we dispute that she was sleeping. You know what? Whether she was sleeping, whether she was out of bed, whether she was in bed, to be shot in your own home, to be shot at all and shot 8 times. And there's no arrests yet. Not a single arrest. Not one. No charges, no arrests. One firing. One firing. He's been fired. One of those 3 officers fired. That's it. He's not been charged with anything. There's not been any charge. Now, if you know different, and it's July 10th today, if you know different, please let me know. Please contact me on Twitter, the Popcorn REEL. Let me know, because that has not happened yet, where they have charged any of these 3 white cops. Not one charge. The other 2 cops are still on the force. Maybe on desk duty or whatever that is. Getting money. I don't know if they're being paid or unpaid. But you know how that is. These guys typically get paid and they are on desk duty. None of them. This happened in March. It is now almost 4 months later. That's what I'm talking about. That is what I'm talking about. Law enforcement, official stories, delays. Oh, we don't take your black life very seriously. And as one Cobb County, Georgia police officer, and Cobb County is Atlanta, where Atlanta is, where Rayshard Brooks was murdered a little more than a month ago, just about a month ago now. By police. As this cop in 2017 in Cobb County said to a white woman, "Don't worry, we only shoot black people, remember?" That's what I'm getting at here. Law enforcement, the way they deal with black lives. My point is that I think the Robert Fuller case needs a deeper investigation. It needs an investigation by a special prosecutor. It needs an investigation by the federal government, the FBI, and the U.S. attorneys. It needs to be looked into. I'm sorry, sheriffs, LA County sheriffs or whomever, local people, We need something more robust than that. This is how black people have had to get any kind of justice. It's usually through the feds, even as the feds have not been the nicest to us. So when I ask that question, I ask it with some context. I ask it with some historical context. I ask it with some systemic context. My point being is that our lives are not taken seriously in this country and have not been since we were brought here against our will well over 400 years ago. I think Robert Fuller's death needs to be further investigated. I do think that that is required at the bare minimum. I really think that Robert Fuller's death needs further investigation. There's also a case in Sacramento of a young man as well named Mario Matthews, who suffered at the hands of security guards and police a year ago at the Golden One Center in Sacramento, California, where, of course, Stephon Clark, a young black man, was murdered by police, shot 28 times in his grandmother's backyard. And, of course, the Sacramento district attorney did not indict those police. So now, a year ago, July the 4th, 2019, just almost a year and a week ago now, Mario Matthews was this is going on all over the country. He ran in to a into the Sacramento Golden One Center. This is where the Sacramento Kings play NBA basketball. And he ran in there. This is, again, just over a year ago now. He had been at a concert, apparently, attending a concert with T-Pain, and that concert was held just outside the arena. And there had been some kind of basketball showcase with the Kings and the Lakers and the Golden State Warriors. This is according to the lawsuit, because the family of Mario Matthews is suing the police and the arena guards from Golden One in Sacramento, Golden One Center. And I don't know why it's important for the LA Times, in their article by Alejandra Reyes-Velarde, to report that Mario Matthews didn't have a shirt on. I don't know why that's important. July 2019 in Sacramento is hot in terms of temperature. So I don't know why that's something that needs to be reported on. Is that designed to send some kind of trigger to readers? Is that a trigger that you're sending out? The synapses, the neurons, the neurological aspect of this? Oh, shirt off. That means he's crazy. Is that the association that you're making? But then, be that as it may, I wouldn't think that that's unusual, quite frankly. But again, it's always about the behavior of the person that gets murdered, right? It's not about, well, why are these police kneeling on this guy? Why are these arena guards kneeling on this guy? Kneeling on his neck for 4.5 minutes. Yes, exactly. That's right from the story. Oh, 4 minutes and 40 seconds. He ran into the arena. The door was left open. The door was propped open for the arena. So he went inside. There was no event going on in the arena. The door had been left open by cleaning staff. So someone was cleaning it. I don't know if the cleaning person was there at the moment, but that cleaning person apparently, according to the lawsuit, left this door open. Mario Matthews runs in, ran around the court as if he were shooting a basketball and dribbling a basketball, according to the lawsuit. And there's video footage of this incident. It was released, I guess, by the Sacramento PD. And you had these two arena guards running and chasing Matthews into a hallway, pushing him up against a wall and bringing him down to the floor. It's just ridiculous. And they put his knee on, one of them put his knee on Matthews' neck 4.5 minutes, according to the lawsuit. Now, what are you doing? We've already seen this with George Floyd. Now, this happened before George Floyd. This has been happening all over this country for centuries. Oh, boy. Oh, video footage from one of the officer's body cameras records him saying that Matthews is probably high. And for whatever reason, he was acting a fool. So what? That means you have to put your knee on his neck for 4 minutes and 30 seconds? 4 minutes and 40? 4 minutes and 30? That you have to put your knee on his neck at all? He's acting a fool. He's high. How would you know? Are you a medical doctor? Look, I get it. People know when people are high. People who take these drugs, I get it. But you're not a medical doctor. And that's another problem in this country. We do not have police officers who are trained in that. We don't have medical personnel with them. There are places in the country where they do this, but not many. Excessive force. This is a death that could have been avoided. How are you doing? I think that's the question now, isn't it? You've heard me talk about some of the stories that you may not have been aware of over the last 24 hours or so, the last 12 hours or so, the last day or so, 2 days. But how are you doing? I mean, what are you doing to alleviate things? Because this is something I asked when I started these podcasts, when I started these episodes of this podcast back in, March of this year. Yeah, you're at the almost at the 4-month mark, daily, doing this. And that's a question I want to return to again and plan to return to it on many an occasion, particularly in the next few months, because as I have warned, there is going to be sadly, more of this kind of trauma in different kinds of ways, whether it's in the White House, whether it's with this virus, whether it's with police murdering people, whether it's with these white racist groups and these casual episodes of white women absolutely exhibiting the most racist qualities or the most privileged, entitled behavior. I mean, another day, another Karen. And I hate to say that word Karen because it's more than that. That's another thing. We euphemize. We give these euphemisms to people who do racist things or who run around with privilege and entitlement, flaunted. We don't call these people what they really are, aka either racists or entitled, spoilt people. Selfish. We don't really call them that. We call them Karen. We band-aid it. And I think that's a problem with it. Again, that's a whole nother subject for another day. And I think that in part contributes to this atmosphere. And I'm glad now that we are seeing more white people losing their jobs for their racist behavior, either at work or outside of work. I think that's good that that's happening. And granted, yes, these white people are going to go on somewhere else and get a job in the next, 5 days or 5 minutes? Some of them, many of them. Maybe, maybe not. But maybe, yes, they will. But the point is that companies have to stand up and deal with this and address it. And more of these racist individuals are being punished now. Either by losing their job or by law, they are actually being punished. And we need to have these laws now. We need to. And it's happening here in San Francisco. At least there was one of the board of supervisors here on the local level of politics here in San Francisco put forward a law or proposed a bill about, stopping these phone calls being made that were targeting black people, these racist phone calls made by white people, usually white women, sometimes white men, but usually white women, making these phone calls against black girls who are 6 years old, against black boys, against black men and women. Oh, their shoelaces are untied. Let me call the police. I mean, I'm not trying to lighthearted. This is not a light-hearted affair at all. I mean, stuff like this is happening. Oh, you're writing Black Lives Matter on your retaining wall of your own home. I'm calling the police. What if my good buddy here in San Francisco, James Juanillo, who last month or the month before, I think it's last month, had this happen not far away here in San Francisco? What if he had written Trump, Make America Great Again on that wall? Would those two white people have come up to him and threatened to call the police on him? Would they have done that? Would they have called the police? I mean, if you walk down your street and you're white, and you see someone has a sign or has written something that says maybe on their wall, maybe not on their wall, that says, Trump, Make America Great Again, would you be calling the police on them? I mean, knowing how violent some of these folks are, some of these racist people, knowing that they're violent. I mean, we had a situation here in San Francisco where someone had a sword, used a sword. Someone had the temerity to knock someone's hat off, and the hat had Make America Great on it. And so the guy who had his MAGA hat knocked off his head pulled a sword out of his backpack. I won't proceed to gross you out with what happened next. I will leave that to your imagination. You can actually look this up online if you so desire. And I put that word in quotes, that last word, desire. Probably the wrong word to use, I think it is. But that's the thing. So there's this board of supervisor in San Francisco who has put forth this bill, this proposal to stop these phone calls or to punish them if they're made, these racist phone calls. And I think every city in the country should be doing that. So that's a level of stress. And as my guest a couple of days ago from A3PCon, Manju Kulkarni, the executive director of that organization, A3PCon, as she said, racism is a stressor. So for a black person, a brown person, an Asian person, this is an additional stress in a coronavirus pandemic. Then you've got the stresses for everybody, including, of course, white people, black people, Asian people, Latinx, of people confronting you if you have a mask on. People have talked about this. How are you doing with all of that? Have you been confronted because you've worn a mask or not worn one? Because you really should be wearing a mask. I mean, I don't know if I've said that enough here. I don't think I have. But I do think that you should be wearing a mask. And I know that it is uncomfortable. And people may have certain conditions and it may be an issue. They may be allergic to something. Masks are very important. They clearly slow this virus down. So, again, how are you being affected? We're in July now. We're in July. We are hurtling toward August. No, sorry, make that Labor Day. Oh, no. Sorry, make that Election Day. I mean, we're going to be at November 3rd in 2.2 minutes. I mean, this year has gone by quickly. It has also gone by very slowly. So much has happened in these first 6.5 months of 2020. Some of it has changed us, or some of us, in profound ways. Some of us have experienced some really painful things. Loss, illness, the loss of a job, loss of a family member. These are realistic and real things that have happened, and people who may be listening to me at this moment may have been in that position, may be in that position, may know someone in that position. How are you doing? How are you coping? How are you feeling? I hope that you have some support, because that's very important. I hope that you do have good people around you as part of that support. I hope you reach out to them. And this is also, I want to add this particularly for men, because men do not do enough of this, reaching out for help, expressing their emotions, expressing their feelings. This is not something that lots of men do. And furthermore, this is not something that lots of men do very well at all. We have seen a rise in domestic violence attacks. Domestic violence in the home. Of course, that's what domestic violence is. And these attacks are by men against women. And those attacks have gone through the roof. during this pandemic that continues on and is getting worse in the United States to the point that we are not accepted anywhere. I mean, we're not even accepted in our own country. I mean, New York is instituting a 14-day quarantine for people, particularly from California and other states, Florida, Texas. But we're letting people into California, though. Yeah, that's all well and good. Our rates are skyrocketing, but you can come in here if you want. And I don't want to sound like I'm being tribalist or NIMBYist, not in my backyardist. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that is the attitude of the governor of this state, who is getting so much credit. And I told you here a few short months ago, a few short weeks ago, that I was not happy with Governor Gavin Newsom here in California. I told you that. Brag, brag, brag. But I am still not happy with him. And transferring people from one prison to another prison, infected people. So you're going to bring people from one area and you're going to go and put them in a population in San Quentin in Northern California, in the prison there. And you're going to have these skyrocketing rates in Marin County, just across the bridge from San Francisco, across the Golden Gate Bridge, north of. Man, there's something more than gross negligence about that. And the governor did not take any steps. And even though he may not have personally done this, or he may have done, but he may not, he should have done something about this. That should never have happened. Stresses. If none of those situations that I have just articulated apply to you, then how are you doing every day? Are you working from home? Are you going to work in outdoors? Are you actually going to an office environment? A lot of people are working from home. I mean, that's something that I'm thankful for. But it's not easy because everybody cannot work from home. Everybody can't do that. And quite simply, everybody does not have the resources to do that. How do you make it through every day? There are lots of great books I could recommend to help you pass the time. There's lots of great things on TV you can watch, I guess. Netflix things I'm talking about. Streaming platforms. I'm sure you obviously know that. You don't need me to tell you. That sounds so paternalistic. But how are we spending this time? Because it does offer some time for us to reflect. Some of us are able to. Some of us are in a position where we fear for our lives because we are at home. Because of toxic masculinity and men who are violently attacking their female partners, their spouses. And quite frankly, knowing that the law is not going to do enough about it, then there's more complicated situations than that. I hope that I never have to hear anybody ask, why does she stay? It's just like the same people, and it is probably the same people, if not more, who say, what was she doing jogging at 11 o'clock at night? Just like the same people who probably say, and maybe more of them say, why was she wearing that? This is the kind of ignorance and misogyny and condemning of survivors that has to stop, and stop now. Stresses. You've got a pandemic that's raging out of control. You've got an idiot in the White House who is a fascist and a misogynist and a racist and an Islamophobe, among many other things that he is. A transphobe, a homophobe, all those things. A traitor. You've got news broadcasts that don't properly examine issues, that never really take on issues, that sensationalize and tabloidize everything. Tabloidicize everything. I can understand that people feel boxed in. And sometimes you do, which is why you have to take a walk, if you can walk, if you're able to. Because you must take into account that there is ableism in this country too. And it never gets talked about really, generally speaking, except amongst individuals who may not be able-bodied, may have disabilities. And we all need to be talking about these kinds of issues. We need to, and I've said this in a number of these episodes. We need to be a more compassionate people. We need to be more compassionate human beings. And I mean sincerely compassionate and empathetic. I don't mean, we need to. No, this has got to go deeper. It has to go much deeper. I mean, obviously, Donald Trump has failed that test. He never had a soul to begin with. How are you doing? There's music, there's fresh air, what is left of that kind of air. The sun still shines. There are still leaves. There are trees still. There's green grass. And if you are able to get to some green grass and some trees, please do that. It's so good for the mind, for the heart, and for the soul. Get out there for an hour and just find a green place. And hopefully with not too many people around you. And for goodness sakes, I don't care if you're out for 5 minutes. I don't care if you're out for 5 seconds. Wear a mask. Please, wear a mask. And while you're at it, put some gloves on too. It won't hurt you. It can't hurt. You'll be surprised the number of people that try to come up to you and try to tap you or, tap you on your shoulder or tap you on your hand or do your fist bumps. Wear some gloves too. But make sure you wear a mask. For sure. Please take this seriously. We've got so many people who are losing their lives. And maybe some people don't care about their lives. Maybe they don't. Maybe they're people who don't give a darn. Well, I'm young and, I'm going to die someday. Yeah, but we're all going to die someday. But does that mean that you have to spread a virus? and prematurely end someone's life? This is not just a case of Donald Trump and his willingness to let people die. This is not just a case of mixed messages coming from various state and local governments and from the media, quite frankly, and some of the officials who come on the media, these pundits. This is also about personal responsibility, and that is something that always gets tagged at black people. Personal responsibility. It's a classic Republican talking point aimed at black people and brown people. But when you had all those people in Michigan back in May and April of this year, hundreds of them congregating inside the state capitol, hundreds of them with guns and nooses and swastikas and Confederate battle flags and Trump paraphernalia, calling for the murder, making threats against the life of Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Where was the personal responsibility there? None of them were wearing masks. Where were the calls for personal responsibility? Oh, they were all white. Wear a mask. Wear a mask. And if you're not wearing a mask, then stop interfering with people who are wearing a mask. If you want to revel in your own spectacular ignorance, do so alone. Don't try to interfere with people who are wearing masks. If you don't care about your own life, then you don't care about your own life. Don't go to someone who's wearing a mask and start threatening them and you want to pull their mask off. What in God's name is wrong with you? Look at yourself. Whether you have kids or not, look at yourself. What would your kids, if you had kids, what would they think of you? If they saw you doing that to some complete stranger, you don't even know these people. You shouldn't do it to anybody. You don't even know them, but you don't even know these people. And you're going up to them and threatening to pull off their mask. Take that mask. What is this? And we are living in a fascist country. This is the second coming of Nazi Germany. It's Nazi America. You imagine that. Some guy bullying you, some weak guy, and it's usually some white guy, bullying you. And a lot of the times it's women who they are attacking because they're cowards, they're bullies. So you're going to go and bully a woman, a female, whether she's a woman or a girl. I mean, this happened to some young girls when they were putting up Black Lives Matter signs. This is just a few weeks ago. People have already forgotten this. In various parts of this country, you had these white men in their 40s and their 50s and older tearing down signs that these little white girls were putting up along a path that said Black Lives Matter on them. I mean, what kind of sick... I mean, if you want to show a generation of white people who you are as an older white person, at least these kinds of older white people, these racist ones, look no further than that. That guy on a bike who was chasing her, oh, the camera's filming me rip these signs down. You're ripping down signs that some young white girls or some young black girls put up. I mean, these are 6 and 7-year-old girls, 8-year-olds. Kids, children, babies. That is a country and a people who are out of control and are evil, and they need to be deprogrammed somehow. And they need to be punished as well, by the way. Put in prison. That's just ridiculous. 53-year-old, 40-year grown-ass men and women, painting over Black Lives Matter signs and murals. And then videotaping it and putting it online, and you're stupid. You're so ignorant and racist. It's this ignorance, this white ignorance, and this racism that just pervades. Look at yourself. Attacking kids or anybody. You're attacking just leave people alone. Mind your own damn business. And be on your way. Ask yourself, why do you have to start interfering with other people who have not done anything to you, who are minding their own business? Why are you having this kind of anger within you about wearing a mask? Why does that provoke such anger in you? How are you coping? Who is telling you to be angry? Well, I can give you an answer to that. Fox News, right-wing hate radio, Donald Trump, OAN, Alex Jones. The truth is that the people who are trying to take your mask off, those bullies, usually these white men, who are usually, again, they're usually older. They're usually in their 40s, 50s, 60s. It shows you that they have been failed too. They just don't realize it. They would prefer to believe that, no, it's not us, it's them over there that are the cause of our problems. It's you. And you have been failed by the people who are helping to cause your problems. Try looking at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, or look at your state house and your Republican legislatures, your Republican mayors. And if you are not happy with what you're seeing, or if you think it's totally fine to not have a mask order while people are dying and the science is clear, and you want to try to make this a two-sided debate, CNN, like climate change, you wanted to actually make it that there are actually two sides here. There is not two sides here. There is just science. And any reactions that are negative to that are stupidity. Science and stupidity. There's science. That's the only side there is. Science. Thomas Dolby once sang a song about science. But in this country, we aren't blinded by science. We're blinded by stupidity. How do you cope with someone who is conscientiously stupid? Thank you very much for listening to this edition of The Politicrat. Be well. Be safer. I'm Omar Moore.